All right. I think if we're not live already, we will be live momentarily. So for everybody joining us at home on YouTube, on Google Plus, Hangout Live, welcome. This is how to make awesome toys from your comic book and graphic novel properties with the Skelton Crew. I am Tyler James. I'm a writer, artist, game designer, comic book publisher, and podcaster, and now occasionally YouTube streamer. I'm joined by Israel Skelton of the Skelton Crew, who is a very accomplished sculptor and creator of many awesome replicas and toys and just artifacts and awesome things that mostly and a lot from licensed comic book properties. So we're going to talk all about making toys and things from your graphic novel properties on this show. Israel, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks so much for being here.
Oh, Tyler, man, thanks for having me. And thanks for the kind words. It's too flattering.
Yeah, for those of you watching at home, Israel warned me that it's raining cats, dogs, and elder gods and all that nonsense where he is right now.
The heavens are opening up.
That's right. So if if a lightning flashes and he disappears, that might be why. Yeah, so we've got a fun broadcast planned. Israel and I saw each other a couple of weeks ago at the Boston Comic-Con. We're just now recovering from that event. It was a good event for both of us, and I'm just so glad that you were able to make some time to talk to us and all the viewers out there who are interested in sort of how the awesome stuff that you do and stuff that's out there actually gets made. So thanks for making that time.
Oh, no, definitely, man. Thanks for having me. Like I said, and if there's anything I can impart, I'll be happy to,
Yeah, it's going to be great. I think we are definitely going to be getting into some good stuff here. So I put together a little bit of a deck. I'm going to just pull that up here. And to give you an overview of what we're going to talk about on this broadcast, we'll start out, and I just want the rest of the audience out there to hear a little bit more about the kind of your background and the kind of work you do and the history of the Skelton Crew. And we're going to look at some examples of some of the awesome stuff that you guys do to give the viewers at home an overview of the kind of different projects and the wide variety of just options that are out there for people wanting to do cool stuff with their IP. And then we're going to talk a little bit about, for the people out there that maybe are making comics or have stories that are in comic or graphic novel forms or book forms, but might have an idea for toys. What are the steps? How do you go from idea to the execution? And what are some, tips for creators that are interested in knowing more about this world, what works, what doesn't, example success stories or things to avoid, sort of talk about that. And then I also have some great photographic examples of this process, because you and I and Greg Murphy and Jason Charamella from the C is for Cthulhu team have sort of gone through this process over the past 6 months or so for the C is for Cthulhu plush toy, which is the crowdfunding campaign for that is ending on Friday. So it's kind of a cool time to look back to the beginning now that we're sort of at the next phase of this project. And then we've also left some time for questions and answers. So if you have questions that you want to get on the show, you can leave them on YouTube in the comments on YouTube, or you can leave them on the Google Hangouts page. And I may also have to just enable those. But yeah, just leave us a comment and let us know, anything that you want to hear us talk about. But Israel, why don't you just give us a little bit more of a background about, how you came to be doing all the cool stuff that you're doing and how you got into this business in the first place.
It's kind of a crazy story. And it's but I've kind of always done it. I've always sculpted, whether it be in clay or wax or, you know, what have you. I've done it ever since I was a little kid. Even from taking, you know, saucer sleds and turning them into Captain America's shield, or, you know, this big wooden mallet that came with a Cedar Works swing set. You know, they send you this mallet to help put it together, and like, I didn't even care about the swing set, you know. I just wanted the mallet so I could, you know, paint it up and make it, and wrap the handle and make it Thor's hammer, you know.
Of course.
So yeah, you know, because you know, I've always kind of done this. My father was an amateur sculptor as well, and but he was also a goldsmith, a silver and goldsmith. So you know, pretty early on, you know, I kind of learned to work in metal, and quite frankly, I hated it. I I hated doing jewelry work. It was so small. It was so, I don't know. You know, it's like you work forever on this piece, and then you know, you're soldering the last bail on it, and you fry it, you know, or you put this piece all together and you set a stone and you crack the stone, or, you know, and there was all these things that were just like, I hate this. I don't want to do this at all. But you can't. I personally, I couldn't stop kind of creating. So even though I kind of bowed out from my dad's shop, I'm like, all right, I can't do this jewelry thing. You know, it's not what I want to do. But I didn't stop, you know, sculpting. But ultimately, so, you know, I kind of gravitated to what I wanted to do, which was larger stuff, which was, you know, just flashback to me being, you know, 8 years old again. You know, I'm building Thor's hammers and stuff like that, you know, and Hellboy's gun and Doctor Strange's amulet, you know, all this kind of stuff that I just wanted for myself, you know. So I did this for, you know, a number of years, and I would keep it, you know, just in the basement or whatever, you know what I mean? And I finished it like it was, you know, a finished piece. It wasn't like these didn't look like they were, you know, done in someone's garage. They were finished. They look well. They look really well done. But they were for me. And it turned out my buddy was putting on a small convention in Bangor, Maine, and he asked me to come up and bring this stuff and put it on display. He asked for my, you know, can you help me out fill a table at this con? And I was like, no, you know, I don't think so. You know, it's like, this is kind of like my private geekdom, you know, the stuff I kind of keep and no one sees. And I'm like, you know, it's like, I'll come up and help you. I'll come up and take tickets or do whatever, but I'm not going to bring my stuff up. And he really pushed me. He's like, come on, man, I really need your help. And the wife is the one who's kind of stepped in. She's like, you know, you got to do this. You know, just bring everything up and take it up and set up a table. And then I had everything. You know, I'd made a little tiny Ant-Man's helmet. You know, and this was, I think, 98. 2008, I think. It was around that time. And so I'd gone up. I had done the con. Well, it turns out a mutual friend of ours, Shane Leonard, was also really good friends, childhood friends with Joe Hill, and Joe Hill was going to be at the con as the like the headline guest. So Shane had stopped by, talk, you know, we were talking, and then he brought Joe by the table, and you know, Joe was just like us, right? Joe is. He loves the same stuff we do. He thinks a tiny little Ant-Man helmet is awesome, and he thinks Thor's hammer is great. You know, he's you know, he's the same age. He grew up with loving the same stuff, so we just clicked. It was pretty fast. And by the end of the con, he had asked me if I could build the Ghost Key from this new series he was working on, Lock and Key, and I was like, yeah, sure. Of course, you know, it was a tiny little metal piece, like the same stuff I had shunned a few years earlier, you know, but but I'm not going to pass up. I had read the first issue, and I was like, this is really cool. I really like where this book is going. So yeah, so an opportunity to work, you know, on that was like, yeah, let's do it. So I did that, and we ended up doing a dozen of those in sterling silver. and then those went off to IDW as Christmas presents that year. And then that turned out to, into developing a relationship with Chris Ryle over at IDW. And he asked me, like, hey, can we take these and make these into, a con exclusive? Can we figure that out? And I was like, yeah, we can figure that out. We can make that happen. So that's what we did. We made that into a con exclusive that year, or the following year, because it was like I said, it was a Christmas gift. And then kind of took off from there. Then I started kind of doing keys, and then the keys led to us, working with Rob and John of Chew, and David Peterson of Mouse Guard, and then Mike with Hellboy, and it's really kind of grown from there. It's been pretty incredible, pretty amazing. I'm so blessed. I'm so lucky, and and reflecting back, and I was just talking to the guys about this just the other day. It's one thing to build crazy, kooky, awesome stuff for a living. I mean, that's one thing, right? So I get to work on these awesome books and try to make this stuff come to life. But more than anything, I get to work with my friends. I mean, come on, like, really? I get it pretty good, So yeah, it's a good life, definitely. But yeah, that's the genesis of how this kind of all happened, and it was about relationships, and that's really kind of what it is. That's what life is. Life is a series of relationships. So I've been pretty blessed. Oh, Tyler, I can't hear you. I'm sorry, man.
I I didn't want to squeak, and I turned my mic off for a second there. This is yeah.
Sorry, man. Sorry.
Definitely on the amateur side of the YouTube stuff, but I'm getting there, guys. I'm figuring out a few things. They got some buttons here. When Israel and I yesterday did a dry run, and while I was waiting for him to come on, I was using the Google tools to draw a little mustache on myself, and I'm giving myself big eyebrows, and then I couldn't figure out how to get them off. So I was trying to have a serious conversation with the guy with big drawn eyebrows and mustaches on. So yeah,
there's no conversation with me that's too serious.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I know you gave people a nice background on the kinds of stuff you do, but what I'd like to do is just let's look at some of that. I've put together. You nice enough to send me some of the best work from your studio. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull up on this on a little slide deck here, and maybe tell us a little bit about some of these pieces, because I think there's a lot of cool stuff here. So yeah, this first one that I'm pulling up, are you able to see that? I believe this is the emblem or from
the
Squitter.
The Squitter coin. Yeah, the Squitter coin.
Yeah, you brought Ben Templesmith over to our table at the Boston Comic-Con. That was pretty cool. Show him the plush Cthulhu, and he's a big time Lovecraft fan, right?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, Ben's a great guy too. He is one of the I am, like I said, I'm very lucky to work with only awesome, decent people in comics. It's happenstance maybe that's pretty much all I've met. But Ben is super awesome, super great, and he's got a good head on his shoulders, and I love his stuff. So it's a win all the way around.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about this piece.
Yes. So you see the big coin, and that's a Squitter coin, and that thing, it's deceiving in that picture, like how big it is. But when you see it in the book, it really it's over 4 inches across. Mm-hmm. That's a big, heavy piece. Yeah. So that piece was actually, in conjunction. I worked with another sculptor to kind of to get that piece up and running. What we did is for that piece, I supplied the sculptor like the main template with all the letters and all the other stuff already in it, front and back, and pretty much we worked on the design together with Ben, and because Ben's art, especially if it's in a panel, it's not, everyone's art's different. And Ben's art, is a little almost like loose and kind of free moving versus someone like Gabe's art, which is really tight and and doesn't waver,
Right.
So I wanted to really kind of nail Ben's aesthetic and Ben's lines. Excuse me. and and so what we did is we created the center disc and the back disc, the back side of this, and a super talented gentleman we work with, Jamie McFarland, who happens to be a Temple Smith fan, sculpted the squid and the crown on top of that, and in the ring and stuff, that little rim around it.
Yep.
And then from there, we take it and we take the original, we go into molds, and then the molds have to get worked and get ready and get prepped for the production mold, and then we go into production, and we go from there. But with a piece this size, given the weight, and pardon me, I'm gonna take a drink real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry about that.
Or just stick your head outside and open your mouth.
Yeah, it's the truth tonight. With a piece this size, there's you got to be real conscious of the casting, because of sheer weight.
Mm-hmm.
It's real easy for a heavy piece not to cast well. But that's one of the things that we work with, and that's part of doing this biz, is like you have to work with the kind of the best guys out there and the best guys for the project, because one caster may be better than another caster at certain different things, but you have to kind of know that, given the experience.
Yep.
And the best way to make this a reality and make this come to fruition and have it look great. And but that's kind of what we do, right? So that's what we do, and that's what we make it happen. So we know how to make it happen,
Nice. And so what about that's kind of and the piece next to it? What's that one?
Oh, the piece next to it is the Angel Key from Lock and Key.
Okay.
So yeah, that piece was I sculpted that completely, and that piece was an amalgam of plastic. The wings were in the original were made of plastic. The shaft and the rest of the key are all in metal, hand turned, and then I kind of cut the sides and inserted the wings, so in the mold, in the original, and then I went to mold. So the whole piece is cast in one full piece. It's not going to come apart on it. It's one solid cast. And then we enamel the wings, and we do all that. We do all of our enameling in house, So, and we do all our hand cleaning in house too for all our metal. That's one thing that I think. It's one thing you can't get away from. I read an article recently, and I'm not going to name the name, but it was another collectibles company that was saying, like, one of the things we don't do well is metal, and it's like, and I know why, and it's because metal is tricky and it's hard, and you can't just call up a supplier, hey, give me 500 of these and expect them to look good, because what you're going to do is end up throwing like 490 of them in the garbage because they don't look good. We get our process is, when we get the cast, we hand clean, we hand polish, we take care of all that stuff right up to plating, and also it's about using the right plater for the job, so, and that's kind of all stuff that we've amassed over the years, so. But those are steps a lot of companies, I don't think, want to take.
Yeah.
They don't want to hand finish. And it's like, but to get the best product and the best pieces, you can't get away from it. It's just, that's been my experience. I'm not saying that there isn't some wonderful master company out there that can do it. I haven't found, and we've been doing this a while.
Yeah.
So I know what it takes. I know what it takes to meet my standards, and it means us pretty much handling it just about at every step.
Yeah. So I see it, it's, I guess, speaking of metal, I see some of these artifacts that you did for the BPRD series. How did those sort of all come to be?
Oh, that's another great story. So I ended up I'm a Hellboy fan, right? And like who isn't? Who isn't?
Yep.
Who doesn't read
Yeah,
Hellboy or BPRD?
I grabbed the big library master edition from my local library when I was there the other day, and just I'm reading I'm reading the first couple Hellboy arcs in just gigantic
Oh,
like super
I know
omnibus library edition right now.
I have all those. There's 6 of them thus far, and I have all of them, and I love them. And I treat them as reference material too. So I probably shouldn't. I probably should buy trade paperbacks, but I don't. So I'm constantly flipping through for reference and scale and everything else.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, yeah, I'm a huge Hellboy fan, and BPRD, the whole Mignolaverse, if you will. So this was several years ago now, and I can't remember what year it was, but I was at San Diego. I had previously sent in a pitch to Mike, and I was like, it was to Dark Horse, and about doing this, like, hey, I'd love to kind of do these, and it's not something that that is going to appeal to everybody, that's not what it is. But it does appeal to Hellboy fans, and it appealed to me, and so I had submitted to Dark Horse, a proposal into Dark Horse, and
was this after the Lock and Key stuff?
We were already doing Lock and Key at that time.
Yeah.
I think we were just starting Chew and maybe just starting Mouse Guard at the time, and so I had submitted something into Dark Horse, and they're busy. Scott Alley is super super busy. So it's one of those things where it's like I'm sure he gets proposals and submissions all the time. So and in fairness, it was only a couple months, right? Yeah. And of course it's con season too, so everyone's super busy. So I was out to San Diego, and I was doing a signing with Gabe and Joe for Lock and Key for the keys, and my friend Scott Dumbier is friends with Mike, and he was just getting done a signing for Rocketeer. I think he was doing a Rocketeer signing, and as he was getting up, because I was going to sit in his seat for the signing, he was talking to Mike, and he introduced me to Mike, and Mike and I started kind of talking. He's like, "Oh yeah," he's like, "I saw your proposal. I love the idea," and then pretty much that was it. He's like, "I love your work. I love what you do with Lock and Key. So let's kind of make this happen."
Nice.
So yeah, again, it's all about relationships and kind of trying to do your best work. That's it's one of those things where it's like I don't cheat. I don't skimp. It's like I do it how I think it should be done. I don't work backwards. I never. And some companies will do that. Some companies will almost pick a price point they think an average customer will spend. Like, oh, they're not going to spend more than this.
Yeah.
And I don't work that way. I don't work backwards. I think the piece will suffer. And I've seen it. I've seen it before in other stuff where it's like they were too conscious of trying to keep something within a certain price point that the piece suffered for it. And that, to me, that doesn't make any sense. I'd rather build the piece, whatever the piece is what it is, and then the price point gets determined after kind of what you have in it. So that's how I work. And who knows? It probably goes against every business model there is, but to me, that makes the most sense. Build it right, and then where the chips fall, that's where they fall.
Yeah. Last year during the Seeds for Cthulhu campaign for the board book, you were nice enough to donate some of those artifacts to the campaign, and I think they lasted all of like 2 minutes before they all got snatched up. So, like you said, these things might not be for everybody, but for the super fan that's out there, like, eat them up, and the quality really shines through. Now,
thanks, man. Thank you.
So yeah, we looked at a couple of some metal things, and that's being your background and your training, but you've also made some headway with these chogs. Now, are these the resin ones right here? Is that
no? Those are actually vinyl. Those are vinyl. That was that was kind of our first foray into working with vinyl toys, and And yeah, so it was what I ended up. I'll tell you a little background on how I met the Chew guys, because we were just having dinner in Boston, kind of talking about the same thing. And let me tell you, I mean, I rave about everyone I work with, because I truly feel that I work with the best, and I don't blow smoke, but Rob and John are amazing people. They're amazing, talented. They're amazingly talented. They're awesome.
Yep.
They're just great people. Yeah, so we were out to dinner just a couple weekends ago, and kind of talking about how everything kind of unfolded. Gabe had posted some pictures of the keys on. Well, let me back up even a couple weeks prior to that. So Catherine, my wife, she comes up to me. She's like, "I love this book, Chew," and I'm running a studio, and I'm trying to get all this stuff done. I don't have time to read comics, which sounds crazy because I love comics, and I started this because of my love of comics. But it's like I can't keep up, right? Because we're so busy.
Yeah.
And so pleasure reading has to take a back seat. But I tell you, when your wife is into comics, you're a pretty lucky guy. So she was like, "This book is so good." And I'm like, all right, I'll take a break and start reading it. And she was right. It was very, very good. And I love the art. I love Rob's art. And so I have a meager original art collection. So I was like, well, maybe I can kind of get her a Chew piece, for her birthday or something. So I started looking at Rob's page, and it's like, oh, I really love his lines. I really love his stuff. Fast forward a couple weeks, it's like, okay, I'll keep looking because her birthday's in a while. We get an order in, and I look at the order. I was like, oh, that name looks really familiar. And but I kind of set it in the to fill pile. And later that day, Catherine comes in into the studio, and she's going through the order. She's like, "You know who this is?" And I'm like, "No." She's like, "This is Rob from Chew." And I'm like, "Oh, it is, huh?" So Gabe had posted some pictures online of the keys. I guess Rob had replied, "Hey, do these really exist? Are these a thing?"
Yeah.
And Gabe was like, yeah, Skelton Crew does them for us. And so he ordered one, and then I threw in another one, and I was like, "Hey, man, if you're ever looking for a sculptor, or to work on stuff, give me a holler." And so he got the key, liked both of them, and gave me a shout out, and that's kind of where it went from there, And what I love about Chew is that Chew has really kind of pushed us into, I don't want to say pushed, happily pushed, if you will, but pushed us into stuff that I've never done before, but has been awesome, like the plush, like vinyl, pretty much I know metal, and I know metal better than your average cat. That's just, and I'm not knocking, I'm not ringing my own bell. I'm just being real. I've worked a long time with metal. I know metal reductions off the top of my head. I probably even shouldn't. It's probably a disease, but I do.
Yeah.
But as far as vinyl and plush and the other stuff, that was stuff that was kind of, we cut our teeth with Chew, and it's been awesome, and it's been great. And it was I'm not saying it wasn't a lot of work, because it is a lot of work, as with the back and forth with Cthulhu, and that was relatively smooth, but it can be, it's a lot of work, but it also, for me, it expands our capability. That's, I don't want to be pigeonholed to okay, these guys do this really well, right? And we do. I want to do a few things really well. I don't want to do 78 things mediocre or okay, but I want half a dozen things that we do really well, and that's what we've been able to do. And so hats off to those guys. Hats off for asking, "Hey, can we do this?" And I'm like, we never have, but we can figure it out. So that's that's what it is. So, but yeah, no, choose a blast. Yeah, like I said, Rob and John are awesome. Awesome.
So did those guys come to you, with the ideas for all the vinyls and the chogs and the plush chog, or was this sort of a back and forth, or what can you do? What are some options? How did that work a little bit?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a back and forth. They wanted a vinyl chog right out of the gate, and I was like, all right, and it's so funny because I'm so used to working with reductions, because everything I sculpt or everything we sculpt is up sculpted, so you sculpt it larger than what it really ends up being. And like I said, I know metal reductions and mold reductions and wax reductions from metal like no one's business, but I didn't know vinyl reductions. Like, okay, if I sculpt it this big, what are the steps, and how many phases of molds does it go through before it reaches the final production piece, and then what's the shrinkage? What's how big is that compared to how big the original sculpt is? And for the life of me, I had the hardest time kind of getting that information out of the manufacturer. But we ended up, kind of working it out, and that was our, and vinyl's different, right? So vinyl, you can't sculpt vinyl like you sculpt resin, because it's not going to cast. It's not going to, you can't have the level of detail, these sharp things, these sharp lines, these sharp things like you can on a resin statue, because they won't cast in vinyl, that way. I mean, you can. There are processes where you can get that, but you're then dealing with crazy expensive molds, and it's really a deterrent. So that's why you see a lot of vinyl have these softer lines, So vinyl kind of, when you think of vinyl.
So vinyl's a more inexpensive option to get get into it. It's sort of like or is that not how it is?
I'm gonna say vinyl is probably a little bit cheaper to produce than resin. As far as your upfront sculpting, that doesn't change. That doesn't change regardless of if it's resin or if it's vinyl. That doesn't change. So that has to be factored in, to any project you kind of take on. What is it? What's the pre-production cost? What are those going to be like? And what does it have to be? I mean, I just quoted out a job. I was going to call it a job for it, but a statue project. And people don't realize, when just even a small statue, and this statue was that the characters were sitting. It was 7 inches wide, and about maybe 4 inches, a little over 4 inches tall, which isn't very big. But the sculpting and all the pre-production molds, casting, paint, we're $10,000 into this, and it's like, and I know, and that scares people, but that's the reality, that's kind of what it is, so that's it. So that you got to factor in all those pre-production costs, and that's not even production. That's not even the boxes. That's all the other stuff. That's just getting that thing ready to go off for manufacturing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess that's why that the number of statues compared to things like floppy comic books that come out are And you don't see too many obscure characters leading the way, right?
Yeah, you don't see. Tyler, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
No, sorry. Yeah, you don't see it too many. The ratio to property versus books that actually get that sort of treatment, whether it be vinyl or statue, is on the slim side. You do see a crap ton of Batman and Superman and Spider-Man, because you can literally make a new Batman statue every other month and sell 1,000 units. And that's the reality, because people love Batman. It's Batman, right? So, but when it's a a more obscure character, like something, and obviously choose pretty out there, but we'll take but there's plenty of indie books. There's plenty of indie books that are really great, and people would love to have stuff of. But you know, can you move 1,000 units? And really, that's one of the pitfalls, right? You know, that's like you need to move that many units for thing to even pay for itself.
Right.
You know, so yeah, that's kind of the downside.
Definitely the challenge. So I mean, you know, behind all these these great projects, you know, we could talk for hours, I'm sure, of the stories and the back and forth and things. But I'd like to move on just a little bit to talk a little bit about, you know, that process from idea to execution. Now, obviously, this is something that we went through with the C is for Cthulhu project, and you know, we sort of had the advantage of having, you know, I think Greg's initial design for C is for Cthulhu were very toyetic to begin with, in terms of, you know, round, plump figures and bright colors, and things like that. So it was almost like, you know, people were asking us for the plush before the board book was even made and printed. So, you know, having your audience tell you what they want before you make it is always a good way, always a good indicator.
That's awesome.
Of something.
That's a good barometer.
Yeah. But, you know, what are some steps or some tips for creators that are sort of, you know, they've got an idea. What's sort of the next step?
Well, the steps vary from what you're looking to do, whether it be like a metal piece, or if it's a you know, plush piece or a vinyl piece, and that really, you know, that's kind of what I do. Like I see things in 3 dimensions. So even the simplest 2D art, I see it in 3 dimensions. So I kind of see it in the round, and I've always done this. So for me, that's a really easy transition. And of course, certainly the artist on a particular project is you know, sees it in the round because they're drawing it, and that's what they're trying to convey on the page. You know, but there's a lot of 2D artists that aren't 3D artists, you know, and that's not a knock or anything. That's just what it is, you know, because 3D art has its own thing. It's its own challenge. So you want to talk about the plush? You want to talk about like the steps with the plush, because we kind of lived that just recently.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so I mean, like the idea, I guess we would say, or the concept, you know, as I said, you know, the idea came, I think, probably from a backer before we even wanted to go there. And people were actually in our first campaign, because, you know, we overfunded. People were like, just throw a plush in there as a stretch goal. And, you know, this was the first board book that we've done that is sort of like, let's you know, conquer one or solve one issue before we take on the next. And it was something that definitely we I think we wanted to do, but as someone that has, you know, learned and had some hard knocks with just the floppy and the hardcovers and the different kinds of books projects, learning plush toy development was like a whole nother ball of wax. So the fact that you know, with your prior relationship with Jason, that you were keen to come on board and work with us on this thing, just, you know, was great. It was awesome.
Oh, like that. Hey, I had a blast. You know, yeah, and Jay's a great guy. Jay's, you know, so we had actually talked about the plush a long time prior to us kind of like making this happen. But yeah, it was always kind of in the back of my mind, you know, like kind of what were the steps, you know, to kind of pull this off. So plush is kind of a weird animal, where you're trying to take fabric and with the right stitch and sewing lines, create something that's 3-dimensional, that looks like the character that you're trying to do, that is structurally sound, you know, that isn't like pulling apart at the seams, you know, that has nice, you know, embroidered detail, especially on this one. So there's a lot of things to kind of factor in on, like, how do you take something that's, you know, a 2D piece, and to make it 3D is one thing, but then to make it, into a plush thing is completely something different. Greg was awesome with supplying us 3D turnarounds. Those were pretty integral, in kind of like getting just out of the gate. Having those out of the gate is actually, quite frankly, a lot more than what we're used to working with. We're used to working with 2D art, and even with hand drawn turns, it's not like a rendering. The best approach, and this is if you already say you are already a sculptor and you've already sculpted up your character, this is what this character looks like, in clay or Sculpey or whatever. If you have something in your hand, some tangible physical thing, that is the best. There's nothing beats that, having something in your hand that this is what I want to now create in fabric. That's the best way to do it. But the second best are the 3D turns that Greg did. That was awesome. We were able to take those and go to town, and make the tweaks and add stuff and take away stuff, remember Greg's initial art didn't have like toenails, and it's like, but the art in the book did, and I'm like, we can put toenails on this guy. Let's do it. Let's take that extra step and put little toenails on him, and I know you guys are like, oh, really? Is it gonna look good? And I'm like, yeah, it'll look good, but that's just because I've done it, right? So I've done this before, So
yeah, I mean, Greg's he's a tremendous artist, tremendous asset, and the ability to knock out some 3D turnarounds, and to really help. Really, I mean, like we were giddy just at seeing the concept turnarounds and there.
Oh, I know.
But then we actually, so we started with that, and I have here the sort of the first prototype that was sort of sent from the thing, and so for everybody that now here's the kind of thing, like if this was just me running this show and they sent this back, I might be like, well, I guess that looks kind of like it. All right, I guess that's what we get, but immediately you're like, no, this is a starting point, and we can do much better.
And the funny thing is like I let you guys in like before I normally let anyone in, and normally the first handful of rounds of back and forth, you don't need to see because you're just going to get discouraged. So I do all that back and forth myself. I was like, no, this head is way too small. Those tentacles are wrong. Those claws don't look right. It's like the legs are too long. Exactly. So this is all stuff that I would normally do myself, but you guys wanted to be involved in every step. I'm like, hey, if you guys want to be involved in every step, then sure, but keep in mind that this thing has it's a long journey to get from here to where you want to be.
Exactly. And again, this was another place where having a digital ninja like Greg, so that he could provide his thoughts and turn around mock-ups that would make it easier to communicate. So this was just to talk to Backer. So we're sort of working in the States, and then these are getting put together in a manufacturing facility in China. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So someone in China is sort of taking our direction, working with us to go from concept to these initial things, and so sometimes there's a language gap. So to be able to come back not just with fix the claws or too lanky, but actually tighten things up and show them things, I think it's probably
exactly. Exactly. Doing the altering it digitally, and that's something. And Greg was great about that. Greg was like, "Oh, I'll just change it myself," because that's something we would do on our end. It's like we'd widen the head. Like, if this is great too, and that's why, like what we do, we work directly with creators. We're not working with some licensing guy solely at a desk. We're working with like with Mike and Rob, and if I didn't think, if I imagined something incorrectly, then they can be like, no, this is how it's supposed to be. I'm like, oh, okay, so yeah, and that's great, so Greg wanted to kind of alter those himself. I'm like, sure, man, go for it. It's like, we want to get this right, so every, and every time I would send you stuff, I already knew what was wrong, but it's like, and I'd give you like bullet points, like, okay, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. For some reason, the wings have changed. We had to get those wings fixed, right back and forth, but it was awesome. It was a great process, and you guys get to see it firsthand.
Yep. And so, up here was the second revision, and they still had tentacles that were too long, and they swapped in some cheap looking wings on us. So we're like, nope, we want to get closer to what we had before, and so we did another revision, and this one starting to look a little bit better. We like the shape of the head on the right, I believe. Tentacles were really, I guess with a Cthulhu doll, tentacles are the number one thing, right? You got to nail.
Well, the tentacles, yeah, the tentacles were a little tough because the initial, as you can see in these ones, the tentacles are coming out from the neck, and that's not how it's supposed to be, and they're too long and thin, So yeah, exactly. So we had to kind of like how this thing was constructed. We had to have that changed, and that's just what it is. So you change it, you get it right, you make the right changes, and that's what we did. We went back and forth and got it right.
Yeah, definitely. So that was the third prototype. The fourth one, we just about there. A couple sort of minor tweaks from there, but I think with this one we said, okay, they got the basic body and shape right. And so then
they got the basic body and head right. The wings were right. Just the tentacles were a little off. There were subtle things. We increased the size of the head, and even more than Greg's original art, but it worked. It actually looked adorable. So when you walk away from something like that's pretty darn cute, you have to go. So
yeah,
the head's a little bit bigger than Greg's art, but it works. It looks amazing. So
yeah, definitely. And then we started and then once we sort of had the body straight, then the next one had detailing, the sort of custom detailing on the eyes and the swirls.
Yeah, the swirls. I wanted the swirls embroidered. So we made that change, and then the eyes were a little wide. So we brought them in a little bit, so it's all little subtle tweaks, and it's stuff that a lot of people aren't going to notice. I shouldn't say that. They're going to notice, but they're not going to realize that they notice. All they're going to know is that it doesn't look quite right. It looks a little off. And they're not going to be able to pinpoint exactly what it is, but that's kind of our job, is to pinpoint exactly what's off, make those subtle tweaks, subtle changes, and get it looking like it needs to look, whether it be increasing the eye size, moving the eyes in, swirl placement, all that stuff.
Yeah, and so we definitely went through that. So it was several week process, five different sort of revisions and feedback and a gradual process. But then a short time after that, this guy arrived at your place, and you started sending pictures around, and just very excited about that. So with a prototype in hand, that was great because that sort of allowed us to take Cthulhu all over New England and grade all, make all those Cthulhu grams.
And you can feel them and touch them, and that's another thing too. It's like when dealing with plush, and I call it fair toy. It's like when you go to the fair and you win a game and you get a plush, and you're like, okay, but this feels so cheap and junky, and it's like, and that's out there, man. There's good plush and there's bad plush, and it's like, and like even some of the stuff that you were privy to, like the company that was manufacturing this, also manufactures for some other really big name toy companies, and that's stuff that you're not going to have at the ready, but that's stuff that I have because of my relationships with my manufacturers,
Right.
So I'm sure you could go online and you could find some place to kind of do your plush, but unless you're working with someone who has the relationship, and kind of knows all the, I don't want to say all of it, but what I'm saying, who has a relationship with existing manufacturers, and kind of knows a little bit, you're better off. You're better off finding someone like me versus trying to go it alone, because there are a lot of there's some pretty cheap stuff out there, and I think we've all seen it, So
Yeah,
but,
I mean, you can go on Amazon right now and get a plush doll for like $7, but it's not going to feel like this doll. I mean, like when we got this doll, like that was one of the things that everybody that touched it, they're like, wow, this is really nice fabric. It's super soft. It's cuddly. Like the detailings, the stitchings, it's just all just a well put together doll. And I think that's sort of what the quality of the C is for Cthulhu brand we were going for. We're not, because we're not going to print 100,000 copies of the book. It's not going to be a $4 cheap book, but because of the generosity of the backers and the fact that people are that want this stuff, are willing to like pay a reasonable price for it, and be excited about it. Like, we can actually go the extra mile and make sure that it's a really good thing. And one of the things that was related to that was sort of the next step, once we had the prototype in hand, was to get that toy safety inspection. So
that's right.
Anything to say about that?
Yeah. So when we get a plush in, we have a few sent to us, and there's generally one for us for photo solicitation. There's one for for whoever I'm working with, so they can kind of handle it, feel it, touch the prototype, and one that goes off for testing. And that's the one that my son played with for a day or two before I had to send it off. But I couldn't deny him. He saw it and his eyes lit right up. And I'm like, all right, you can play with this one, because this one is getting sent off to get tested. So yeah, so we send them off, and the government rips them apart. So they shred them. They check the insides. They check. I know it does. It doesn't even survive. And they check the outer fabric, all the embroidery. They check the inner fabric. Yeah, they check everything. So this thing is fully approved. This gets the safety seal. Like, this thing is like, a kid could gnaw on this and there's not gonna be any problems. So which is a nice little extra step. You don't have to take that step, and a lot of people don't, especially if you're kind of wanting to, like, hey, this is kind of a collectible, this isn't a toy, but that's not the case with this guy. This guy is going to be loved. He's going to be mauled. He's going to be fell asleep on. He's going to be drooled on. He's going to be the whole 9 yards. So yeah, so we took the extra step with this guy, and made sure he was, and not to any surprise, like I said, because we use good manufacturers. I always say this: there's good China and there's bad China. You just gotta be able to weed them out, Yeah. So, but yeah. So that's ultimately it. So we took the extra mile with this guy, extra steps, and yeah. So not only is he durable, plush, cuddly, but he's also safe. Well, in Christ, he's an elder god, a safe elder god, huh?
That's an excellent for you. Yeah. So, I mean, so the phase that we're about to go into, the Kickstarter ends at midnight on Friday. So we're sort of using that that to help us set our print runs, or our production runs, I should say, and one of the things that we should point out is that with most of these toys, there's going to be a minimum production run. It's going to vary, I guess, depending upon the manufacturer and what you're doing. Like, what are some of the things that sort of contribute to what the minimum production run would be?
There's a couple different factors. Well, depending on, because resin has its own minimums, plush has its own minimums, vinyl has its own minimums, and that really there's a couple of things that factor into that. So one is manufacturer. Some manufacturers aren't even going to give you the time of day if you don't have at least 1,000 pieces. Manufacturers are a little more flexible, but you're going to pay.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not doing the bare minimum, they'll do it, but you're going to pay because it disrupts, because they're making, you know, SpongeBob's, and they're making stuff
Yeah.
that there's, you know, 100,000 units, you know, stuff that's just going to go directly to Walmart. You know, they're doing other stuff, you know, and they're doing all kinds of stuff with larger stuff. So when you have these small kind of custom jobs, you do have to have a relationship with the manufacturer. You just can't be like, you just can't cold call and be like, okay, I want, you know, a few hundred units. They're gonna look at you and like, no, I'm sorry, our mins are this. You know, we're not gonna disrupt the line, you know, to kind of fit in, you know, a few hundred of these, you know, but having a working relationship with different manufacturers is kind of what helps, you know, and that's what we've done. That's what we've done over the past few years, is kind of really kind of develop that, and then we know who can do what and what the minimums are going to be, and you know what those costs are associated with those minimums. You know, it's one of those things too where it's like that can, especially for someone who wants something plush from one of their own IPs, that, you know, those numbers can be a little kind of like, geez, really? Like, I didn't think it was that much, because they're seeing the SpongeBob doll at Walmart for $12,
Right.
you know, and it's like, yeah, but that's not apples to apples, because they're making literally 7 million of those SpongeBob dolls. You know, so the price point on 7 million, you know, is not what it is on, you know, 400 pieces or whatever. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I mean, I always one of the things I always say when talking about to indies is we can compete with the big boys in a lot of areas. We can't compete with Marvel and DC on price and expect to build anything resembling a you know, sustainable business model. So you know, do all sorts of different things, compete on quality, compete on just originality, compete on everything else, but if you're trying to beat the big guys on price when they have it locked up, you're going to lose. It's a game you're going to lose.
Yeah, exactly. No, and that's quite frankly, it's like, and I don't want to knock Marvel and DC, because that's quite frankly that's what I cut my teeth on when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
But I haven't read a Marvel and DC book, and I couldn't tell you how long. Everything I'm reading now is independent, and I'm loving it. It's you know, that's everything. Everything is either is an independent book. It's a small publisher book, and it's better. It's more enjoyable. So, you know, there's something to be said for that. So, you know, but I'd rather channel my funds that way. You know, it's a better story.
Yeah. So this was awesome. It was first of all, it was great taking a trip down memory lane of just the production of how far we've come, and you know, I had such a good time at Boston Comic-Con, just basically showing off. You know, anytime anybody with a good costume came by, I'm like, hey, can I take a picture? And then I'd throw the Cthulhu doll in awesome. There with it. So we got Supergirl, we got Starfire, we got vampires, you name it. So I guess to kick off the Q&A section, and I'm going to have to, I'll take a look at both the YouTube stream and the Google Hangout stream to see if there's anything, any questions coming in. But just one that came in earlier is sort of just all right, let's say you're an indie creator. You don't have the biggest audience, but you do have, you do have fans, you do have stuff, and you do have a property that might lend itself to some merchandise and something that Skelton Crew might do. Like, what's something that, what kinds of things might someone think about doing that's not going to completely like break the bank, or what's a good sort of starter bit of merch or replica or something that to sort of get your feet wet and see if the audience is going to react to it? Any ideas on what something like that might be?
Yeah, I do. If the property has, and I say this because this is kind of what we do. If if the property has like a metal piece, like a talisman or a amulet or something like that, that I can control. I can control the minimums a lot easier. Now you're still gonna have to have the upfront sculpt and all that stuff. You can't get away from that stuff. But as far as minimums, you don't have to agree to these crazy high minimums. You don't have to say, okay, this say I have. I have very, very, very good relationships with my casters, years, so I can be like, because we do so much stuff and so much volume, that if I say, hey, you know what, I'm only going to need a couple hundred of these, or 150 of these, they're more than happy to make that work for me, because they know that I'm doing so much other stuff with them, so, if you have a metal piece, a piece, in your property, in your book, that has, that can be done, that's a good way to get like awesome, super tight merchandise, for and keep the minimums down. The price will still be high. I shouldn't say high, but you're manufacturing in the U.S., so there's some costs that go along with that, but they're going to easily offset what you would pay as far as minimums, and shipping, quite frankly, from the Orient. So yeah, if you had a metal piece, that would really, that could work. That's a good way to kind of get something out there, get something in fans' hands, something tangible, something that to remember your piece with, remember your product with, and it's metal. So metal, it almost triggers something in the brain because of the physical weight of the piece in your hand, and that's always something I found. Like, someone picks up a key or someone picks up one of the pieces, like, oh, this feels real. It's like, well, yeah, because it's metal. It's not.
It's not a plastic piece.
It's not. It's exactly. It's not plastic. It's not a plastic flash ring or a plastic Green Lantern ring that that you get at your comic book store. It's not. So that's one way. That's one way to kind of get your stuff out there, get product. Product for your property, and and that's something that we'd entertain. That if you have something that you have, and you're like, okay, you think you can do this many units during your convention schedule, and you want this many units for yourself, yeah, we can kind of discuss that and kind of kick those ideas around. Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
That's great. Is there anything in particular, besides, of course, the plush toy that you've got working on that's coming up that you're really excited about, that you can tease? Or
let's see. Yeah, actually, and I'll show it to you. It's let me see if I can hold this up. But it is the gender key from Lock and Key. That little beauty is coming up here very soon. It was sculpted. Actually, this is our first full size. This is actually a 3D print.
wow.
This is this is our first 3D print that we've done full size with. Now, we've had our jewelry, like keys, 3D reduced into jewelry and stuff like that. But this is our first piece that we've done. And Paul Harding sculpted this, and he's a phenomenal sculptor. He does a lot of work with DC and just about everybody. He's pretty incredible, and he's super gifted at 3D rendering.
So what's the material of that? If it was a 3D print,
it's a plastic. It's a plastic type material. I will say this, and like I said, with good China and bad China, there's good printers and bad printers. You hear people talking like, well, I can build a 3D printer for under $600, from this online tutorial. Yeah, you can do that. You can print all kinds of stuff, but you're gonna have stridation and grow lines and grow sprues and all this other stuff. And there's different degree printers. The machine that actually generated this piece, because this is relatively small, but they generate full-size sculpts, full-size statues, is pushing $100,000. So as a result, to get one little print like this, it's very, very, very costly. But the quality is really, really good, you know. So for me to go to molds with this, it's going to take just a little bit of touch up on my end, ready for molds, and that's pretty amazing, because a lot of stuff you've seen that's been 3D printed is you're going to spend a week sanding all the striations out of it, you know, to get a usable piece, you know. But
yeah, so
that's what it is.
So the future isn't exactly 100% here yet with 3D printing, but it's exciting.
It's exciting. It really is. It's not, you know, I mean, and quite frankly, you know, even a lot of your traditional sculptors are now kind of like setting the tools down and picking up, you know, programs like ZBrush to do 3D renderings. But what I like, and that's, you know, generally what we're doing, is we're using, you know, traditional sculptors who have kind of taken the next step. You know, this isn't like, it's not like 3D rendering is like the magic fix, you know, because for some people that's all they know is 3D rendering, you know. These people have a working knowledge of how something is to be built, you know, in 3 dimensions, because they're classic sculptors. This is just now a super tool for them, you know. So, and it's great, it's awesome, you know. So yeah, so we're darn close, man. I tell you, I was actually really impressed with this sculpt right here, with this print. You know, like I said, very, very minor things to touch up, you know. And I've seen some other 3D prints. It's just like, ugh. You know, but I knew this would be good. You know, like I said, I paid for it. You know, so you know, that's how it was. Yeah. Well, I knew it came from a trusted source that these guys do really good work, and I wasn't let down. And that's how, you know, I'll put it that way. So awesome. You get what you pay for. You know.
That's unfortunately often how it is, or fortunately, I guess it makes the world make sense a little bit. So if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way that they can do if they want to come and talk to you about a possible project?
The best way is to contact me through the site. Yeah, contact me through SkeltonCrewStudio.com, and just click the contact button and drop me a line. That's the best way to, you know, to kind of get to me. You know, even if you were to call, you know, I could be in the shop. I could be doing, you know, I may be, you know, meeting with, you know, whoever. Me. You know, you know, you're gonna have to leave a message with the receptionist and stuff like that. But you know, best way is to drop me a line, and let me take a look at it. And we get approached a fair amount, and by a lot of really great, beautiful, wonderful books. And obviously every situation and everything is different. So, you know, it has to work, you know. And one of my rules is, and this is my own personal rule, I gotta dig the property. And if I don't, I may not be your guy, you know. And I'm not saying that the property isn't good. That's not what I'm saying. To me, it just needs to kind of fire on multiple cylinders. We do what your property deserves and needs, and do I really kind of like just and so into it, you know. And that happens, and you know, of course, it happens with the stuff we do. You know, I'm very lucky to kind of like to work with stuff that I really genuinely really dig and love. But yeah, that's kind of my personal rule. You know, that's I think you do your best work. I think you do your best work when you love it and you're completely vested. Now, I'm not saying that people haven't come to us with books that aren't any good. They are good, you know, but there's probably someone out there that feels the way about that book as I do about Chew, you know, or Lock and Key. And that's who you want to find. That's who you want to be partnered up with, you know, because they're gonna give it, you know, they're gonna give it everything. Not like I won't give it everything, you know, but you just want that kind of symbiotic, you know, shared passion, you know, and that's so. I don't have a problem saying, you know, not for me, not right now, you know, and I think it's for everyone's benefit, you know. And it's not like I said, I'm not like I think the book is, or the project I'm being approached with is not any good. That's not the case, you know. It's just, do I have time to do it justice a lot of times, you know? So
yeah,
you know, and I want to be fair with people.
No, I that's a great great way to treat your business, and you know, you want to give people your best, and if you're not into it, you know, maybe someone else is better for it.
Yeah,
So
if I don't
sense.
think, you know, if what we have going is like taking up this huge block of like manufacturing and doing and everything else, and I don't think I can fit this in, you know, then I'll tell you, I'm not gonna blow smoke. I'm gonna tell you, it's like, I don't know, I don't think I can do this, you know, as fast as you want it, or have it to you by this time. You know, I don't think I can do it, and I'll be straight with you, you know. So
Yep.
and
Yes.
but that's the thing, is like I want people. It's all about relationships, and it's not. It is. This life is all about relationships. So that's what it is.
Yeah, so this is exciting. We got a question coming in from the live stream from a fellow Boston area creator, Rich Clabaugh, who he does a great all ages webcomic called Graveyard Gang, the Graveyard Gang, and he.
Oh yeah.
You know, Rich,
I've heard of that book.
Yeah, it's great. It's he's got a very cool animated kind of style, very colorful, very all ages, sort of just appeals to a wide range. And you know, the one thing about Comic-Cons nowadays is that there's just so much of it is a family event, and so it's great that there are guys out there like Rich in that space and doing good books in that space. So his question is, should he wait, or should you wait until fans start asking for items and toys before you consider adding them to the table? What do you think on that?
Maybe, you know, I mean, it's you want to make sure that because of minimums, you know, because something like Graveyard Gang isn't going to have a bunch of metal pieces that they're going to want, you know, something that would fit that property best is probably plush.
Yep.
So, you know, when thing that, you know,
looks like that Maine weather is affecting Israel a little bit here.
Your most popular character, you know, get your most popular character, the one that everyone loves, and then test the waters with that one character, you know. And if that one works and it's selling well for you at cons, then, you know, maybe you can expand, you know. But that's always a good approach, to pick your best, your hottest, your coolest looking guy, the guy that everyone knows and associates with your property, and do that one. And if you can kind of go from there, then that's great, you know. But that's one way to kind of, you're taking a risk. Sure, everything's a risk, life's a risk, but you're gambling on your most important thing.
Yep.
You know. Yeah. So
I think that's good advice. Another question coming in from Tiffany Vincent. She asked, like, do you feel there's room in the industry for more people to do what you do?
I don't know. Maybe, you know, I mean, I think, I don't know. That's a tough question. There'll be days when I could easily tell you no, you know, that like, good luck. If this is what you want to do, there's no Ferrari parked in this guy's yard. You know,
get fun. Just get sculpted.
What was that?
Get sculpted. It might be a metal Ferrari, but
yeah, really. Yeah, you know, so yeah, there are days when you're kind of like, all right, this is really, this is tough. This is tougher than I ever know that it is. You have those days. Sometimes a couple of them in succession. Sure, I think there's always, you know, room for, you know, someone to kind of, and maybe it's not, you know, the stuff we do. Like I said, I want to pick half a dozen things to be really, really, really good at, right. You know. So I mean, and we live in a world where there's billions of things, right? You know, so that's kind of, you know, is there enough room to kind of pick like the 6 things that I've picked, you know, and do them? I don't know. I don't know. You know, I mean, maybe, but are there 6 other things? Sure, there's 6 billion things. You know, so yeah, you can, and you see it. You see, and that's what I think that's great about America. I'll tell you a story. There's so when I have 2 boys, a 4-year-old and a 15-month-old, and so we're decorating the nursery, and we're doing like this kind of monster theme. So this monster themes in their bedrooms, and in my oldest bedroom, and we found this woman online who makes severed Yeti heads, and it turns out she's from originally from Maine, but now living in Canada. But that's what she does for a living. She makes these plush severed Yeti heads, and so we've purchased a couple, and they're up in my son's room. Can you make a living making plush severed Yeti heads? You know, and it's like and her site's Careful It Bites, I think. I think Careful It Bites, and that's what she does. She makes these plush Yeti heads, and she keeps the lights on. So
that's a solid name. Yeah,
you know, but that's the country we live in. We live in America, man. You know, it's like we can. Yeah, there's 6 things. There's 6 billion things. You can do whatever you could do. Hand painted Christmas ornaments, and then find a property that wants hand painted Christmas ornaments. There's all kinds of stuff to do. You know, so yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes at Boston Comic Con, when you see how many prints people buy, and it's like, like I wonder, like, how are people still buying all these prints? Like every wall in America must be covered by now. But at the same time, like, one thing that we will never run out of is wall space and shelf space, and we were always going to have shelves, and we're always going to want stuff to put on them. So
it's the truth.
We make great stuff. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. We try real hard, and it's like I hope it's evident. I hope that kind of people get it, they touch it, they feel it, and that's another great thing about con is that they can feel it, they can touch it, they can handle it. It's like they can see, like when here it is in person, So yeah, Boston was great. Boston was a real awesome time.
Yeah.
Don't do cons. Really, our con schedule is very, very limited, but Boston's a great con. And,
yeah,
it was really kind of get out there and see everybody.
Definitely. We got we'll take one more question that just came in from Michael Perlman. He said that you mentioned your process works best when working directly with creators, but creators have limited time. Do you ever work with other intermediaries, assistants, art dealers, like go-betweens? I mean, I'm wondering, like with the Mike Mignola pieces, I'm assuming he wasn't looking over your shoulder at every turn. But
no, well, I mean, the big thing is creators want to work with someone they trust, right? So that's where I come in. Like, I'm not gonna be happy with this. Mike said to me once, like, that he had seen one of our first phone conversations. He had seen other people try to attempt his stuff, but it always looked like it was too Flintstone-y. Like they tried to take his art too literally, and it looked like it belonged on the Flintstones. And I know what he's talking about because I've seen it too. It's like you have to make something that looks real, that looks like Mike was using it as, a reference piece. And it also needs to look like if you shook the book hard enough, it fell out, right? So Mike had seen the keys, Mike had seen my other pieces. So he knew that I was going to handle this, how it should be handled. That doesn't mean that I send him, hey, this is the prototype. This is what I think. You want me to change anything? And he would be like, oh, do this or do that or change this. Generally, that wasn't the case because, we're pretty good in the sculptors that sculpt other Hellboy pieces that I don't are also giant Mignola fans. So it all works, right? So we're all kind of all fans of the properties we work on. But no, I don't deal with intermediaries. I really don't. I deal directly with creators. And I'm not saying that, like, if I'm dealing with a publisher, that I may not have to, run something by, like Chris at IDW, but I'm also running it by Gabe and Joe at the same time.
Yep.
So yeah, so no, I always deal with the creators, and sometimes it's more people have time to get back. That's fine, But I want the creators to weigh in, definitely, and it's like, even if it's a week or so, whatever, it's a week, I'll wait. I won't touch the sculpt until I hear back from somebody. Yeah, I don't mind. But yeah, no, that's exactly it. I feel bad sometimes for some of the sculptors we work with when they send us like okay, here's what it is, and then I send it off to a creator, but a creator's working on 2 different books, and they're up to their eyebrows, and it's like 2 weeks before they get back to us, and it's like keeping the sculptor at bay for 2 weeks. But I think the sculptor knows that, like, oh man, like, I'm not, like, the creator of this piece is actually kind of critiquing my stuff, so they got to give a little bit of a charge out of it.
Yeah.
They're like, oh really, you're gonna send this to this person already? I'm like, yeah, of course I am. Like, oh, okay, so yeah, no. I think everyone's cool with it. I think that's part of the biz too. You know that people are busy. It's comics, people are stretched thin, so, but yeah, no, I rather work directly with creators, and knock on wood, I haven't not worked with a creator yet, directly with a creator yet. So, we'll kind of keep it there.
Yeah. Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, thanks so much, Israel, for this live stream. I got a lot out of it. I hope people watching and the people that are going to watch it in weeks, months, years to come. I mean, that's the benefit of being on YouTube, and just being available as a resource for folks that want to dip their toes in this water. So again, that's SkeltonCrewStudio.com. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yep. And yeah, and we'll get some additional, we'll have this rebroadcast up. It'll be available. I'll try to plump in some links to
that'd be great,
the YouTube as well, so that'll be there and live there to go with the video. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for your questions, guys. I appreciate it. And yeah, again, the C is for Cthulhu campaign ends at midnight on Friday. So if you want to get one of those plushies that you saw, go ahead and grab one there. If you want to contact Israel about doing some awesome toys, get in touch with him. Working with Israel and his wife Catherine has just been a great experience for myself, Jason, and Greg. And yeah, we're the ideas are already spinning for what's next. So I'm sure we'll be continuing those.
Awesome. Can't wait, man. Can't wait. Players all. It was awesome working with you guys, and yeah, I can't wait. So you got something else in the works? Let's make it happen.
All right. Well, have a good night, and we'll talk again soon.
All right, man. Thank you very much.
Thanks.